Sir, can I see license and registration, please?
Imagine your father is on an operating table. His heart is failing. The surgeon who trained 15 years for exactly this moment is 6 minutes away. And then, flashing lights, a traffic stop, a cop who takes one look at the driver and decides, based on nothing but what he sees, that this man needs to be checked, questioned, humiliated, and delayed. Your father's surgeon is black. The cop made him sit on the curb for 31 minutes. Your father coded at minute 24. He survived, barely, but this story, the full story, goes so much deeper than one traffic stop. It reaches into a department that had been warned, a hospital that documented everything, a body camera that an officer thought was turned off, and a courtroom moment so devastating, so perfectly complete that the officer's own attorney asked for a recess just to breathe. This is the story of Dr. Raymond Briggs, and the morning a single traffic stop shook an entire city's idea of who gets to be believed. Before we dive deeper into this absolutely shocking story, hit that subscribe button if you believe in holding authority figures accountable when they abuse their power. Dr. Raymond Briggs was 44 years old, a board-certified cardiothoracic surgeon at Mercy General Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. He had performed over 900 open-heart surgeries. He had trained at Johns Hopkins. He had been featured in the Tennessee Medical Journal twice, once for a pioneering bypass technique he developed, and once for a charity program he founded that provided free cardiac care to uninsured families in low-income neighborhoods. He was the kind of doctor people prayed for when things went wrong. On the morning of March 9th, things went very wrong for a 61-year-old patient named Harold Parham, a retired school principal who had been brought in by ambulance at 5:48 a.m. with a dissecting aortic aneurysm. The on-call resident took one look at the scans and made the call everyone dreads making: "Get Dr. Elias now." Raymond was already in his car when his phone rang. He had been heading in early anyway. He always did before complex cases. He answered through the car speaker, heard the words dissecting aneurysm and 40 minutes, maybe less, and pressed the accelerator. What he didn't know was that the next 31 minutes would become the most documented, most argued over, most consequential traffic stop in Shelby County history. Raymond was doing 52 in a 40 zone. He knew it. He wasn't reckless. He was deliberate. His hazard lights were on. He had already called the hospital back to say he was 5 minutes out. He saw the blue lights in his mirror and did exactly what he'd always been taught to do. He pulled over immediately, turned on his interior light, put both hands on the steering wheel, and waited. Officer Dennis Carr pulled up behind him, 7 years on the Memphis PD. I am 32 years old. In those 7 years, he had issued more traffic citations than anyone in his precinct, a fact his supervisor called impressive and that community advocates called a symptom of something darker. Dennis Carr walked to the driver's side window slowly. He looked at the car first, a silver Mercedes E-Class, clean, current year. Then he looked at Raymond. Something shifted in his posture. Not suspicion exactly, something more comfortable than suspicion, something that had never been challenged. License and registration? Raymond spoke clearly and calmly. Officer, I'm Dr. Raymond Briggs, a cardiac surgeon at Mercy General Hospital. I have a patient in a life-threatening emergency right now. I need to get to that hospital. I will give you everything you need, but I am asking you, please, we need to move quickly. What Officer Dennis Carr said back is what made this case impossible to defend. You can wait. Everybody's got somewhere to be. He said it without looking up from his notepad. Raymond felt something cold move through him. Not fear, he had been stopped before. Not anger, not yet. Just a terrible, sinking clarity. This man had already decided what kind of situation this was. He had decided before Raymond finished his sentence. Raymond tried again. Sir, I have a patient with an aortic dissection. That is a cardiac emergency. Every minute matters. I have my hospital ID, my surgical department badge, my driver's license. I said, wait. Dennis held out his hand for the license. Raymond handed it over, then his hospital ID, then his surgical department badge. Dennis looked at the badge the way someone looks at a menu in a restaurant they didn't choose. He set it on the hood of the car. On the hood, like it was nothing, like it was a receipt. And then he walked back to his patrol car and sat down. Raymond called the hospital. "I've been stopped. I don't know how long." The charge nurse on the other end went quiet for a second, then said words that Raymond will never forget for the rest of his life. "Raymond, he's deteriorating. We need you here." He looked in his rearview mirror. Dennis was in his patrol car, just sitting, running the plates, running the license, taking his time the way people take their time when they believe time is theirs to take. Raymond called 911 from his cell phone. He told the dispatcher he was a cardiac surgeon being delayed at a traffic stop during a medical emergency. The dispatcher said she'd send a message to the officer. Nothing changed. He called his department chief. Chief Dr. Sandra Osei called the precinct directly. She was put on hold. Harold, 61 years old, retired teacher, grandfather of 4, coded at minute 24. The crash team got his heart restarted in 90 seconds, but for those 90 seconds, Harold was gone, and Raymond was sitting on the side of a Memphis road watching his hazard lights blink. At minute 26, Dennis came back to the window. "Step out of the vehicle." Raymond didn't ask why. He had been a black man in America long enough to know that asking why in that moment would only make things worse. He stepped out. Dennis told him to stand at the curb while he conducted a vehicle inspection. Raymond stood on the curb in his surgical scrubs and white coat, hospital badge clipped to his chest, hands at his sides, watching morning commuters slow down as they passed. One woman stopped her car completely, rolled down her window, and called out, "Sir, are you okay?" Raymond nodded. He wasn't, but he nodded. Another driver took a photo, then another. A man on a bicycle stopped and watched for a full minute before pulling out his phone and recording. Nobody stopped for Dennis. Nobody asked him if he was okay. They were all watching Raymond. And every single one of those phones was a witness that Carr had no idea he was accumulating. At minute 31, Dennis finished his inspection, no violations, no contraband, nothing, and handed Raymond back his license. "Watch your speed." That was it. No acknowledgement of the hospital badge, no response to the surgical department credentials, no mention of the multiple calls, his dispatch logs from the hospital, from Dr. Osei, from Raymond himself. He walked back to his patrol car and drove away. Raymond was in the operating room 14 minutes later. Harold survived his surgery, barely. Raymond's hands were steady. They were always steady. But his voice, when he called his wife from the hospital parking garage that night, was not. Here is what Officer Dennis Carr did not know. His body camera had been recording the entire time. He had believed he had turned it off before exiting his patrol car. He later admitted this in his own incident report, which would become one of the most damaging documents in the case. He had not turned it off. The camera had recorded everything, his face, his expressions, the moment he picked up Raymond's surgical credentials and set them on the hood of the car. The moment he sat back in his patrol car and did nothing for 24 minutes while the hospital called. Raymond didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table at 2 a.m. with a yellow legal pad and wrote everything down, not because he was a lawyer, because he was a surgeon, and a surgeon documents. Time of stop, 6:17 a.m. Time released, 6:48 a.m. Name of officer, Carr, badge number observed. Credentials presented, hospital ID, surgical department badge, driver's license. He wrote 4 pages. Then he called his brother, who was an attorney in Nashville. His brother listened to the whole thing without saying a word. When Raymond finished, his brother said only, "Did anyone film it?" Raymond said he thought some drivers had stopped. His brother said, "Find them, all of them, before anything else." By sunrise, 4 strangers had already posted their footage online, and by noon it had 800,000 views. The footage from the civilian phones showed Raymond standing at the curb in his white coat and scrubs, hospital badge visible, hands at his sides, calm in a way that looked like it was costing him everything. Carr's patrol car sat behind the Mercedes, lights still flashing, going nowhere. One video, taken from across the street and zoomed in, clearly showed Raymond's hospital badge. Another caught the moment Carr set his credentials on the hood of the car. The body camera footage, released 3 days later after the department realized they couldn't suppress it, showed everything else. It showed the full 31 minutes. It showed the dispatch logs flagging the hospital's emergency calls. It showed Carr looking at his phone. It showed him eating something, a granola bar the internet would later note with considerable fury, at minute 18. The Memphis Police Department put out a statement calling the stop a routine traffic matter handled within departmental guidelines. That statement lasted 6 hours before they quietly deleted it, because someone had already found Carr's complaint history, and it looked very familiar. A journalist at the Memphis Commercial Appeal filed a public records